Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a smart, witty, and timely podcast brought to you at a time when Americans are getting fed up with all the shouting and bickering in Washington, D.C. So I, Halli Casser-Jayne, and veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper are here to offer you an insightful, engaging journey into the world of politics, always with a smile, and dialogue that snap, crackles, and pops. And with our very special guests, we strive to offer a different take on all things politics in our weekly conversations. So, pour yourselves a martini, grab a spot on your favorite sofa, and have a listen as we tackle it all and like to stir and sometimes shake things up. On this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, Joe Biden is in. Trump after the Mueller Report. Is Trump continuing to obstruct justice? Will Trump be impeached? Should Hillary Clinton be allowed more of a role in the Democratic Party? Will they let her have it? These questions and more, and we're just beginning. Here we go. So, my friend Matthew Cooper, hello and good morning. Oy.
Good morning, Halli. From Washington, D.C., our nation's capital.
From Vero Beach, Florida, where it is hot, steamy, and about to pour down major rain.
It sounded pretty sultry until you got to the major rain. But,
it is kind of sultry. I'll give you that. It's very, very sultry. On my morning walk, I came across some beautiful flowers, though, so it was all wonderful.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that was good. So we've got a lot to talk about. So let's just get to it because, we waited this week. Normally we post on Wednesday, but I couldn't do it. I knew that Biden was coming. I was very curious and I thought it was going to be very topical and, we didn't want to miss it, and wait till next week to talk about it. But Biden did announce, bless his little heart. I'll let you go. What are your thoughts?
Well, it obviously changes the race. He's, been a formidable figure as everyone notes, for decades and decades. And I think as rollouts go, it was pretty good. I think it was kind of smart to just go right at Trump in his opener about kind of divisiveness and racism and stuff, rather than to do a bio spot that's sort of like, the standard bio spot. Here's who I am, and here's what I believe in, and all that stuff. Because I think that would have been unnecessary and not helpful. And I thought his other little bits yesterday, kind of strolling around, getting a slice of pizza and other things, were all fine. Look, he's going to get beaten up. This race is going to change a lot over the next 8 months before voters in Iowa cast their first ballots. It's going to be interesting. And I saw Anita Hill has not absolved him of his supposed crimes from those hearings, so that'll remain a thing he has to contend with. But I think he's poised to do surprisingly well with the black vote. I think I wouldn't be totally shocked if he won the plurality of it. I think, especially for older African American voters, standing loyally and firmly by the side of the first African American president counts for a lot. And, those are the voters who largely determine who wins the nomination. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting road from here. What's your take?
Well, I thought he did a great job. I thought it was interesting. I'm going to do all the girly bull crap stuff. First of all, he doesn't look as well as he used to. And I was looking at pictures of him from a year ago to now, and he looks a little worn. He may have gone on a major diet or something for the big thing. Right. And he needs to add some weight around his face. So he's looking a little older. And then once he gets talking, it's okay. Then that thing that he has that's so special, that smile, in the twinkle in the eye that comes back. But he needs to gain some weight. That's my thought on that. I like that he had this gray shirt on and then he changed later. So he knows what he's, this is a guy who knows what he's doing. I thought the rollout was right. I thought it was very courageous of him. to do what the others wouldn't do and go directly to Trump. I thought that was smart. And the contrast between, you know, a moral person and an ethical person and a good man versus the thing that Trump is, that was beautiful, and it was well. I want to talk to you about the black vote, though. I disagree with you on that. I think he's going to have a fight there for a number of reasons. I want to say, first of all, if you listen to the black pundits, they are like, I'm not talking the older who came out, you know, on his behalf, but I'm talking about the current crop who are on it.
There's no question.
They are out for blood. They do not want him. They want a black person. And they're like, well, so we had Obama. That's not enough. We should have more. And I have to tell you, honestly, this is maybe stupid on my part in one respect, but I have to say, but we still haven't had a Jewish president. We haven't had a Muslim president. We haven't had a woman. So like enough, you know, with this, gender or, you know, identity and all this other crap that keeps coming up. I just find that it's gotta be the best person. We have to get off this other kind of conversation, but they are out to get him. They do not want him, partly because of his age, I guess, and partly because he's an old white guy. And here we go again. I was absolutely, attacked on Twitter by some young black people who, oh my gosh, go to my Twitter feed, the Halli CJ Show, and see if you can find it, because they're like, no way is this guy coming in to, you know, we're not going to let him in. You know, that crime bill, you know, we're still paying the price for that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Then, and on the Anita Hill thing, you know, am I wrong? Tell me what you think, Matt. But we can't keep going back 20 years, 70 years, 100 years. I mean, like this stuff with, Kate, what's her face from, the New York Yankees. We gotta, that was then, this is now. Times change. A good person changes. Now, I thought she was kind of ungracious, and she says at a moment to grab a little bit more fame. Is that fair? I just don't like the way she handled his reaching out, which of course he reached out. We know why he reached out. He wants to wipe that slate clean. But I also don't think she handled herself well. I think she could have been a little bit more gracious about it and still made her point, you know, that it's just not over because you say, you know, this shouldn't have happened. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with everything you say. I do think, look, we don't know how these votes are going to pan out. I do think when you get past the sort of, you know, kind of younger, black, engaged Twitter audience and you get out to a larger group, I'll be very curious to see how, you know, black church-going women over 40, you know, if they're carrying the same animus towards Biden that you're seeing.
The young ones are, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Twitter's a bit of a funhouse mirror. And
well, I'm not just talking about Twitter. I'm watching it on CNN.
No, I saw all the you know.
Yeah, you saw it.
Young African American, and that's why Biden sort of defensively hired Simone Sanders, you know,
right,
who was Bernie's spokesperson last time.
She did. By the way, can I just put an aside in there? She did quit Bernie Sanders early. What's the story? What's the story there?
Yeah, do not know.
Yeah, interesting.
Not sourced on that one.
Yeah, it'd be good to find out.
Look, I don't know. He could be a big fat implosion. I mean, you know, we were talking about Beto weeks ago, and that's been kind of remarkable.
Yeah, I was never. I always thought Beto was overamped. I think I said that to you. You know, so he
you can't do full flake. No, you can't be too flaky.
But you know, if you look at the field, and maybe we should bring in some of the other people who are in the field now. I mean, you know, the talk is, well, Biden, Kamala Harris. Although my thought on her is, she seems to have foot and mouth disease. She says it, she walks it back. She says it, she walks it back. A little green around the edges.
Yeah, although also hyper cautious at times. I mean,
yeah, and that's never attractive.
Town hall, she wouldn't take a stand on a lot of things. You know, it's going to take a long time to play out, but I think
he has the edge.
I think the big factors for Biden are right, like whether he can sort of, go against his natural kind of bipartisan tendencies about Republicans and, be aggressive enough for today's activists. Probably not. But can he kind of get older voters? I will say one thing. I think that all the sort of talk early about like lanes and ideology and who's going to be the moderate, who's going to be the non-moderate, I think it's going to be much more mixed up this time. I think there'll be voters deciding between, especially older African Americans, between Harris and Biden. I think there'll be people deciding between Klobuchar and Warren. I think it's going to be all over the map for a lot of voters.
But there is something else that I think is interesting. I don't know that. I think let me say this: once he got into the race and becomes the front runner, I think something changes for the rest of them, and they become less powerful. They're running to be his vice president. I think there's something about that's in this mix now that wasn't there before he got in. It may have been quietly there before he got in, and that's what, but I think he's the one, it may be another Hillary situation where the old guard is, choosing who was going to be the king or the queen, as it were, with Hillary. But I get the feeling that at this point, once he got in there, we look at the other candidates who don't have the stature he has. They just don't.
Yeah.
And let's also say this. There's something for being, the problem with Trump, among his many problems, is that he had no experience. How lovely to have experience. Now, Hillary, they used it against her. It seems already that they're not using it against Biden. At least they're, he's got chops.
Right.
Interesting.
I think that's right. Well, let's see what happens the first time he forgets a word,
or he
pauses.
makes a gap, and he will.
Then we'll have the long, New York Times front pager on dementia.
Right. They're not going to give him a free ride. They're going to blast the hell out of him. But I think we need to also make the case that there's a difference between running for the primary and running for the general, and particularly so in this election and with that left-leaning Dem aspect that we have now. So we'll see how malleable he is, how fluid he is. We'll say this: you've been covering this for a long time. You've seen him. He has survived where others haven't. Hello.
Yeah. I mean, he exhibits strengths and considerable weaknesses too. So I don't know. It's gonna be fascinating, but it will change a lot. It will not look the same in the fall.
We move on now. Or should we just make point that he asked Obama not to endorse him. He says, I'm not so sure with some of the black voters that Obama is in the good stead he was when he left office. So that's a conversation we can have in another time, but I'll just throw that out there unless you want to comment. You done?
Oh,
you don't have to.
You mean on the left? You mean sort of lefty
the left,
critiques?
yeah. He seems to.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a left critique, both black and white, against Obama, but I among Democrats, he's amazingly popular.
Okay, let's go to this. Let's go to this Trump. Remember him? Oh, God. Impeachment or not? I'm now calling them the hokey pokey Dems. They got one foot in, one foot out. They do the hokey pokey and they turn themselves back. That's who they are. They're on vacation. God forbid they should come back early in the midst of all of this crazy. I'm of the ilk that they should go Nancy Pelosi's route, which is, tear them up in hearings and get the goods out there so that everybody can no longer just, because nobody else is going to read it besides people like you and I and whatever, the whole Mueller report, and then see what happens and then go for it. Now, I know a lot of people worry that that's going to take too long, and particularly with old Trump baby obstructing justice further. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of merit in that. I just don't think you definitely don't have support for impeachment in the Senate, and that's not going to happen. But I think even in the House, you're going to put a lot of Dems who just won in moderate districts on the spot if you push them into an impeachment type situation right now. And you can, you essentially are starting impeachment hearings. You're just not calling them that. And
right.
I think that's probably the way to go. There's a huge consensus in the party for doing that. You get the same things anyway. So, see where you're at in a couple of months. And, if you get more stuff or...
I don't think you need any more stuff. And when you start to have Republicans like what's his name, Neapolitano on Fox?
Napolitano?
Thank you, I can never say his name. Saying, excuse me, but this is, clearly obstruction of justice. And then you watch him doing it further. What's he up to? What does it do for him to slow it? He seems to want to keep it going and slow it down, but keep it going. He thinks it's working in his favor, all of this stuff, but I don't know.
You never feel so good as after a near-death experience, and you walk away from a car wreck. And I think Trump's getting a little bit of that going. I think he's pumped now. He's ready to take out Kirsten Nielsen, and he's ready to oppose every subpoena. He's kind of got his, and orders everyone not to go to the correspondent's dinner, and he's just kind of feeling his chops. And I think he's. I think he's on a little bit of a manic high at the moment.
I see him. See him as scared. Wait a minute. I just want
reason for him to just run, delay and run out the clock. And
there what? There isn't, or there is?
No, there is
Yeah, but what does it get him? Because they're going to get him anyway. There's talk of if he were to be impeached, for instance, Pence becomes president. Which I don't think anybody wants, because I think it's easier. I think it'll be easier to defeat Trump than it would be to defeat Pence.
Probably. Yeah.
So there is that too in the mix of it all. And then if you have Pence, it's more likely, he gets the second term. So that's part of my, thinking in terms of let's just play this out and beat the crap out of this guy in these hearings.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how he can get removed from office through impeachment because of the Senate.
Unless they well, you don't know what's going to come out. You don't know how bad it's going to get, and you don't know how people are going to. I think that a lot of the problem here is, in the way it's been handled, is it's all obscure, because unless you sit down and you read that document, which 99.9% of Americans just are not going to do, all they have is what he says.
Right.
It's different when you start to see people testifying, because that happened in Nixon too, by the way. It all changed after the testifying.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
It did.
So I do see that, but I also see the dangers of impeachment in this particular instance, because you don't want Pence.
Yeah, right. I just think the odds of Jerry Nadler getting something so explosive that Bob Mueller didn't, that will move 17 Republican senators, I think is just...
I don't know.
I can't
the other side.
It, but,
let's look at the other side, which is...
Unless he commits new crimes, I mean,
Well, isn't he doing that now?
Probably.
Telling your people not to testify. Congress is its own branch of government. Hello?
Oh, yeah.
It's obstruction, out in the open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of a weird part of it. But I was going to say to you that I think as far as the Republicans are concerned, if it's in black and white and it's in front of you, at some point, it could get ugly for them too if they ignore it. So I'm not sure. I think I'm not dead set that the Republicans can't move in the Senate. I'm not.
Well.
But we may never get there, so we may never know the answer to that. We have to say. What do you think of Hillary's op-ed? Do you think that it was smart for her to do that, or stupid, or what?
I mean, she won 65 million votes or whatever. I mean, she's she won a strong majority of votes in the last elections. Perfectly within her rights and appropriate for her to weigh in at any point on the subterfuge that helped her opponents. So, I don't have any problems with it. There are people who want Hillary to shut up and never speak again, but that's crazy.
I think it's crazy, and I actually wish she would be a little bit more vocal from the sidelines.
Republicans didn't tell Mitt Romney to go away after he lost to Obama or McCain or anything. This idea that she has to disappear is crazy, but
yeah, I don't think that that's the issue here. I think the issue is they're worried that it gives Trump, more Hillary hate. Crazy.
I think that, the Hillary hatred's going to go on no matter what, whether she's visible or not visible.
Is there a way for her out of that?
I think only time and history. I think, the views of her will become kinder in time.
I have a problem with this, and I think the Dems have failed her. I just don't think this should be allowed to continue the way that it is, and that somebody needs to stand up for her and give her back some of her cred somehow, somewhere, not via history. They're letting her be bludgeoned, and that's a very not. I don't think that's acceptable. And what happened to her could happen to the next, to the next, to the next. It could be them. So it's kind of sad to me that they don't have the eggs, if it's the women or the cojones, to say, wait a minute here, and give her some gravitas back. That's what I think. I think it's wrong. And I think it's affecting how the Dems are running the campaign this year, and it shouldn't. And if they would clean that up, I think it would go away and they could play it a little bit safer. Okay, from the sublime to the ridiculous. I have to ask you about this. Michael Cohen's going to the pokey, in a few weeks?
Yeah, soon.
So do you remember a couple of weeks ago he said he had more goods that were uncovered and he was going to hopefully speak to Congress about it?
Right.
Not a word about that since. And then, of course, we have Tom Arnold.
Yes.
The wacky Tom Arnold who...
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well,
let me say what it was. Tom Arnold taped Cohen, and Cohen had some regrets about what he had testified to in those tapes, but, it was basically, talk to me.
Yeah, well, I thought it was weird that Cohen would risk his immunity agreement by suggesting in those calls that he, had been misleading about things he'd said. So, I thought it's a weirdly risky thing for Cohen to do. But there's no sign yet that it's going to affect his immunity agreement. It's going to affect his sentencing or anything like that. So
I have a problem with all of this because I don't get that he's the one who goes to the pokey and the rest of them get off scot-free. It's weird. It's weird. The justice system is weirdo. I want to
and we still haven't had Flynn sentencing.
No, somebody said something to me this morning about what's the story with the Dems, and I said, please, darling, they're on vacation. They get 2 weeks. They're not doing crap. They keep saying, we're going to subpoena this one and we're going to, find that one because they're not showing up. Well, why are they keep saying, we're gonna. And the we're gonna is only because they're on vacation.
Yeah.
And they're not coming back, 1 minute earlier than they have to. Which I think.
Let's just say if Barack Obama had been elected with assistance from Russia.
Can you imagine?
It would not be going this way for him.
No, absolutely. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, iHeart Podcasts, on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device, too. Just say, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. I'm glad you brought that up because that's on my list of talk about because, there was very clear that there was just, the Mueller Report, the whole first part of it, those Russians hacked our elections. They're still hacking. They're still carrying on. And guess what? Not a word out of Trump, not a word out of the Republicans. This is crazy.
Right. And the story this week clearly leaked from Nielsen's
Oh, that was
allies about how she couldn't bring up to Trump what they were doing on Russia because it would get him upset.
Look, and the reason that didn't go very far was because, her creds are shot.
Of course.
And all of that jazz, but, and who knows whether it was true or not, but it was a good line. Great jazz, as they say. But the fact of the matter is nobody on the Republican Party, is doing much about this because it serves him, I suspect, or that's what he thinks. But I think it's pretty pathetic, frankly. And who would be in charge of on the Dem side of taking care of this? Because they seem not to be doing a great job about it either.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Homeland Security committees would be sort of the major ones on that, but also, foreign relations and others. There's something weird going on. But I do know that Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, has been subpoenaed to talk because they think that a district in Florida was not just tampered with by the Russians, but that maybe the voting apparatus itself. Do you know about that? No, I did not. Yeah. So subpoenaed by a court in Florida.
I'm not sure it was a court. I can't remember all the details. Forgive me, because it was something that was in the back of my head. I meant to write down, and I didn't. And my brain. But somebody look it up. I'll look it up. We can get into more depth about it. But yeah, so that's not good. Well, and let's talk Florida right now. While we're on that, Rick Scott.
Let's.
Okay, so a couple of things, because is that tipping point, and Republicans took it, but they're taking it by less and less each time. So of course now the Florida voters vote that they are going to allow felons to be able to vote in elections once they've served their time, and this would have been devastating to the Republicans. This could have cost them the election. So of course the Republican-controlled House in Florida passed a bill just yesterday that would restore voting rights on the condition that they first pay all fees, fines, and court costs before they can head to the polls. Republicans said that the fees are part of the ex-felon's sentence and are thus obligatory, and the Democrats and opponents of the bill argued not so fast. But of course they control the House, and that's what happened. We'll have to see what happens with this later. But we're talking, over 5 million Floridians supported the statewide and it was a referendum, by the way.
Right. And the referendum said nothing about fines.
Exactly. So this is hot in Florida right now.
And I assume the governor is staying mum, right? I mean,
well, so far. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I go to Florida's Supreme Court. I'm sure they're not finished with it. And maybe go to the Supreme Court.
Yes, could definitely end up in federal court.
But not in time for 2020. Maybe they can delay this thing forever. But it's very ugly, and it's so against the will of the people. And it's extraordinary to me how many Republicans voted to say restore felon rights.
Yeah, it's a pretty big consensus position now.
So I think that
of course Bernie pushed it a new direction this week, but
it goes too far.
But interesting for DeSantis. I assume he's going to sign it. I'm assuming the Republican legislators would not have gone down this road without knowing where the governor stood.
But I do think it's
it's ugly.
It's very ugly, and this is typical Florida. And so now I guess the Democrats are going to have to look elsewhere.
But we saw this in Wisconsin too, where they elected, Democratic governor and attorney general, and then the legislature is trying to claw back their
right. But they've lost on most of their efforts on that. So Florida's not as clean in its heart, I hate to say it, as Wisconsin is. But again, I think Florida is such a strange state, because I think Andrew Gillum is working on getting at this vote thing, which is a huge issue here. There's so much that isn't mined here because everybody's been afraid to go into what is Republican counties. Remember I told you the story about my conversations with women here, and they never admit that they hate Trump because their husbands vote Trump? And there's this
Right.
whole underbelly of women who, if they were so inclined, because how they really feel is, I hate Trump. It happened to me again the other day. I have not met a woman in Florida, and you know me, I know everybody, who is for Trump. Andrew Gillum's and Andrew Gillum is working on this thing, and I think if he's successful, it could make a difference. But speaking of Gillum, a rising star in the Democratic Party, he lost the election because there was some conversation about whether he'd taken money or taken gifts.
Right.
So did you know he agreed to pay a $5,000 fine the other day?
I don't think I knew that it had been settled.
It was settled. It wasn't for the theater tickets, which was the main thing. And I think as part of the agreement, they didn't say what it was for, but they allowed him the grace of saying, believe me, I did this unknowingly, but I will pay this because nobody should accept gifts knowingly or unknowingly, yada, yada, yada. So they let him exit this thing with a $5,000 fine with some dignity. He says he thinks it was about a boat ride around the Statue of Liberty that he took with people that were his friends. That had never occurred to him. One was a lobbyist. So he's not finished. I think that clears him.
Well, that's good. That's good for him. That's good.
I think
he's an impressive figure.
He is an impressive figure, and I'm glad to see that. However they worked it out, they didn't annihilate him completely. I want to go to North Korea. What's the story with the 2 million?
Not really. You don't really want to go there.
Actually, I would like to go there. I think it would be a fascinating place to go visit. But you know me, I like to go to crazy places.
Well, that's true. You like them. You like the shoot 'em ups.
I like the shoot 'em ups.
But let's go to North Korea. Yes.
So what are your thoughts on this $22 million ransom? Now the president says for Otto Warmbier, the poor child who was beaten to crap. And
well, I think Trump may have been right on this. I mean,
what?
You never know what to do in these hostage situations with ransoms. I mean, not hostage because he's basically dead, but it may have been the right thing to do. I don't have strong feelings about it.
Well,
I mean, I know what Trump would say if Obama
he said he didn't do it.
Well, who knows what to believe? I mean, and if there is a $2 million coin, I want it.
I find the reporters report it, he denies it. Reporters report it, he denies it. And he just seems to always somehow get away with it. What is it me? I'm starting to get annoyed.
Well, it's it's hard when he's throwing up so much chaff every day that to deflect about things, and so it's hard when there's this many lies at one time.
Yeah, well, there sure is a whole lot of lies. Speaking of lies, you'll love this one. Sean Hannity.
Yes.
I think he's worth a conversation for a lot of different reasons. First of all, I think he is hooked so deeply into Trump, and probably has been for longer than we all know. I see him as a carnival barker. I don't see him as a newsman. I'm sure you would agree with me on that, correct?
Sure.
Okay. But he has huge connections to Roger Stone and WikiLeaks, and he purged his Twitter feed. But he blocked me a long time ago, so I can't get it. He and what's his face, the pastor, Huckabee also.
Yeah,
I'm in the blocked with the two of them. But I think Hannity is interesting, and I think that the House should subpoena him to come and talk, because I think he's got secrets.
Well, do it in closed hearings, because it could backfire spectacularly.
He's not that smart. He's not a smart guy. He's a big mouth, but he's not a smart guy. I think that could get him, and I think it would be really, really interesting. And before they did, like you said, first behind
you'll
closed
also
doors.
get lots of reporters in newspapers saying, "Oh my God, this is an inappropriate use of First Amendment rights. And you can't make someone start talking about their sources.
Well, I don't know. Last night he said that he might be leaving Fox because they don't love Trump anymore. I don't think he was. I don't think he was kidding. I mean, Bill Shine, who was his producer, is gone, and Roger Ailes gone. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's. I'm not against it. I just it would be an interesting gambit to do it.
Yeah. Well,
but I mean, it's crazy times, right?
You think? How about deranged time? So George Conway strikes again. Deranged Donald.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I don't know if they're punking us or not, if it's all like a big act for their, reality series, At Home with the Conways.
Great title. I gotta give that one to you.
I don't know what it's all about. It is the most interesting marital thing going at the moment. Well, look, he's very he has the never Trump conservative viewpoint down cold, and kudos to him for speaking his mind.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, she must be ready to lop off his what, but she doesn't making her life any easier.
No,
I'm sure. No question about it. The Wall. Remember The Wall?
It's almost finished, right?
So who comes out in favor of The Wall? Your buddy Tom Friedman from the New York Times.
Right. But they've said this, he and others have said for a long time, right? I want a wall with a huge door.
What the hell does that mean?
Just means like we're a secure border, but we're going to let a lot of immigrants in through good legal channels.
He's lost his mojo. Can I just tell you that?
These should not be life appointments, these columnist jobs. They should not be like you get them at 50 and you can keep them till you're 90.
Yeah, kind of like the Supreme Court and all the others. I agree with you. And Congress.
Black robes. I mean, it's like, I think it's time to rotate out.
Well, he's definitely, and some people don't know when to be quiet. That's the other thing. Some people just don't get it that they can suffer for opening up a mouth at the wrong time, and I think he's one of them. You know who the other one is? Bob Woodward. It's interesting how Carl Bernstein has managed to keep current, but you get the feeling with the other one that he's not so current. He's just political. It's interesting what happens to people when they get old.
Yeah.
It's a little scary if you ask me. So, what didn't I talk about that? Because you threw me a couple and I can't remember one of them.
As we wind down here?
Yeah.
Well, the, new economic numbers out this
Yeah, I saw them. What are you thinking there? Because, boy, that sure doesn't sound... Are they playing with those numbers?
Well, it's always possible, but let's assume they're not. I mean, that does make it harder to beat an incumbent president.
Except to say, Heidi Heitkamp said the most brilliant thing about that last night when I was supposed to be sleeping. She said, that's all well and good, how wonderful it is, except in rural areas where people have to vote, really. And the rural areas are just been hit hard, and he promised they were going to fix it, and it's actually worse.
Yeah.
So the economy is good for the upper class, for the coast,
right?
And the major, whatever. But it's not for most Americans, and I think that's a fact. By the way, there was another thing about the Care today, saying that the cost of healthcare has, because of the Republicans playing around with it, have gone up. It's become a real big problem, and how many people are off of it now? They just can't afford to pay it.
Yeah. I hear you. The economy won't save Trump.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it's enough. I mean, Lyndon Johnson got thrown out in a booming economy. It definitely happens. But, if you're in the White House, you'd rather have this than not.
Well, I get that, but can he win, Matt, on 37%?
Well, I think he'll unify a lot of those Republican-leaning independents and other things just when the Democrats pick a nominee, and then, we don't know. No, he can't do it from 37, but can he get to 47 and have Jill Stein do the rest? Yeah, maybe.
Jill Stein? I think she's gone, baby, gone.
Well, the next Jill Stein. All I'm saying is...
Right, I see. Some independent pulls some away from him. And
something. We'll see.
So where are you on it now? I mean, just as we enter the fray, you think he gets reelected? That's a cruel one to ask, isn't it?
I never underestimate the Democrats' capacity to blow it. And I think if you are running on reparations, voting for inmates,
oh God, just listen to it. It's so nuts.
Eliminating private health insurance, a set of new taxes, I think, yeah, he can win.
God, that's really scary, isn't it? But you know what? I think the other thing we have
if you run on like fixing healthcare and more jobs and
infrastructure,
better, safer, immigration and infrastructure, then you can win. But I don't underestimate their capacity to blow it.
Well, you know my feeling on that because they never saw an opportunity to blow it. They didn't want to.
And I think Sanders could definitely be the nominee, and I don't think he'd beat Trump. So
I don't think Sanders is going to be the nominee. I don't think so. I think that what happens with him is, they somehow boot. They the powers that be go after him in ways that maybe even the press can't. They're just not going to let a socialist, quote unquote, take the mantle for the Democratic Party. I just don't see that happening. Not just now. I mean, maybe the next election or whatever.
All I see is it's possible, and I think.
Yeah. But was that did you give me a definitive yes, he wins, or no, he doesn't win?
If I had to bet now, I would say slightly favor him winning, but only slightly.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think they can beat him.
Yeah, I see him as beatable.
I think he's definitely beatable, but they can easily blow it. And that's probably a good discussion, a longer discussion.
One other question, because you've been around these elections on the inside so much. As you start to see the people who are behind the scenes, the political operatives who are running these campaigns.
Right.
How are you feeling about that? Because that's something that I have a thought about. I'm curious what you think. Are the right people in those jobs?
Well, I'm sure it would help to have new blood and different kinds of people rotate into politics rather than the same cast and crew of consultants and operatives and whatnot. But, on the other hand, Trump brought in lots of people, newcomers like Corey Lewandowski. So, there's something to be said for those who have done it before.
Except to say that I don't think Trump won. See, I don't think Trump won. He won on paper, but he didn't win. It was given to him, and I think there's a difference. If it's not given to him, can he win? Now, he's in a different position now because the party can start sending its own people.
But your question was about operatives.
Right. But I'm saying this time around, the party's already sending in its operatives to take over the campaign. It's not the Lewandowskis and the crazies.
Other Republicans.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm worried because I think a lot of the good people who got Obama elected, they've gone off to make money in the private sector.
Right.
And I'm concerned because some of these people who I'm finding out are in the game, they're old, they're tired. I don't think there's any really great smart minds right now behind some of these campaigns, and that's concerning. And whether it's new blood that the Dems need, different blood, could be different, not new.
Right.
Something.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, I there's my could be. If I wait long enough, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's a conversation that's worth having. Even, by the way, true. In the rollout of, did you see Biden's logos?
Yeah, not great.
How do you make a mistake like that? Well, those are the little things that matter. That's why he's the front runner, and who the hell is running his campaign?
Right. I hear you.
And, even how it was floated out. Yeah, I'm in, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm in, no, I'm not. I mean, all right, he teased, it worked out in the end. I'm just saying, part of the same thing that's going on in Florida, where you don't have the proper people on the Democratic side running the infrastructure. I think the same thing is happening behind the scenes. Dems are not fighters.
Right.
But that means that the people behind them need to be fighters.
I hear you.
You do hear me.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree.
Okay.
I don't disagree.
So on that, so I started to ask you. So what didn't we talk about that you think needs to be named here as we go to close?
No, just I brought up the economy when you asked that, and I think that was the thing we hadn't talked about. And otherwise, I think we covered the map pretty well. We didn't do This Week in Anti-Semitism, but we'll catch up next week.
We keep saying that, but I just want to say, that woman's got to go. Her name is Ilhan Omar.
She's feisty.
To go.
Well, that's up to the people of that district, but yeah.
She has to go. And by the way, the other one, what's her name? The
other one.
Well, because there were three of them who keep getting into trouble. OAC, who I think is adorable, and she's basically harmless, except not.
Yes, the representative from Michigan.
Yeah. I watched her for about 25 minutes the other night and was horrified. This is not the smartest woman walking on the face of the earth. Did you just hear my dog cough?
I think I did.
That was Guy. Hi, Guy. Guy's sitting in the room today with us. And she's been quiet the whole time. Anyway, yeah. So, but yeah, all right. I know. Yeah. That's it.
That's it. All right. Next week.
Have fun wherever it is you're off.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show is a production of Resec, LLC. Be sure to tune in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show at hallicasserjayne.com or listen on your favorite app. New podcasts are posted Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern.